Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time, like a little book club for music. I'm PD Rave, your resident garbage shark. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my quorum. We've got David.
On this episode, everybody, I am completely lucid.
Mm-hmm. We've got Matt.
I guess I should have taken some drugs to balance us out.
How many? 3?
1, 3. Between 1 and 3.
Yeah. A prime number of drugs.
Yes.
And we've got Brett.
And I've got 3 different kinds of drugs. Now they're like, Afrin and like Flonase and some eye drops, but drugs are drugs.
Drugs is drugs, man. Drugs
That's
is drugs.
Right.
We're here to talk about music. We're here to talk about an album. And we're excited. The album being provided by David. David, what have you brought for the group this week?
Well, just for the record, the only reason I'm lucid this episode is because it is my album. I have brought an album.
Wait till next week.
That depends on what Brett is bringing, everybody. This album I discovered just making my way through the various internet forums and quandaries for the world of progressive rock and art rock. And this is a band from Boston, Massachusetts. They actually met at the Berklee School of Music. No, I am not talking about Dream Theater. Plot twist.
Swerve.
This
or Kevin
is actually,
Eubanks of the Tonight Show Band.
That's also Ben Levin and Courtney Swain. They met at the school in 2009, and they formed a little group that they call Bent Knee, which puts their names together, Ben and Courtney Bent Knee. And this is their 5th album, I believe. It's either their 5th or their 3rd. I'm not sure. From 2019, and it is entitled You Know What They Mean.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, last time I thought David said it was a prog metal album, and I think he actually said he found it on the prog metal subreddit. And so I was going on that assumption for my first listen through. And so I figured there's probably like an 80% chance it's a concept album. There'd be a lot of guitar middly-me's, good playing and weird time signatures. And there was also a bit of dread for me because metal, while I certainly appreciate it, it does not particularly appeal to me in general.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what were your expectations coming into this?
Well, I paid less attention, but had a bunch of assumptions that I made about what this would be. And like, even if, I figured there was going to be something proggy about it, and I knew that it was something that was modern because it's a newish album. But other than that, like, I will struggle to describe this album after listening to it a bunch. So having it described to me, I can't really, hold that to a high standard.
Yeah, I think we were all expecting something prog rock like, but I don't know if we were really prepared at all for what we got. David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this because on my last few picks on Record Breakers, I've been going through what people are calling the post-genre phase. I'm in a post-genre phase. I'm in a genre-fluid phase where your typical standard musical conventions are all just kind of being mixed and melded together into a soupy stew. And I think that to a certain degree, Bent Knee really falls into that right now with this album. There are a myriad of things happening, put together by some really creative and talented people. And it's a bit challenging. It's a bit rocky, but not totally aggro,
Or maybe
and it's all over the place. Maybe not completely accessible, but that's really what I love sinking into more than anything.
Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
First, there was this whole kind of, I couldn't quite tell if it was a more of a rehearsal or a recording or a concert vibe to it. There were certain tracks that kind of put that across, which kind of made me mad when I've been rehearsing with a band and there's a metal band next door, and once that bass kicks in, you're like, holy shit. It just
it's
vibrates your
awesome, isn't it?
skull.
It's great.
Yeah, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I love
awesome.
not being able to hear the
Feel
music
it
I'm
down
playing.
in
That's right.
Feel it down in
Rattle
your
that snare.
diaphragm.
Yeah.
Get that
Diaphragm.
snare from
Your
the other
sphincter.
room.
Whoa. But other than that, it had dynamics, which was nice because the last metal album I was on for, even the new and improved version with dynamics, it was kind of audio dynamics, but not musical dynamics. And this
Was
had
that
both.
Death Magnetic? Matt, was
Yeah.
that Death Magnetic?
Yeah. It was like that one. There was one album that went lower than all the others, but this one, it's like, okay, there's some give and take, there's some breathing room, which I really liked. And again, going back to the fact that I thought it was going to be more prog metal, it was a lot poppier than I was expecting in certain regards, especially the vocals.
Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Musically, there are things that are done to the audio that make me feel weird on this album. There are a lot of effects that are used we would obviously assume for artistic effect because they're musicians of skill. Like they didn't accidentally decide that they were going to like make Brett wonder whether or not his headphones were broken because the mix was weird and kind of sounded like there was a lot of mud that they put in like tape warble, like some clipping, artistic use of like a blown speaker sound. It was but then like it's completely different than that. Like, there's vocals that are doing the vocal gymnastics and drums that are doing drum things, but drum things that are a little bit more advanced than drum things I can follow. So it's got this level of advanced of beat that I found pretty. It was something that you're not going to sit down and tap your toe to unless you are tapping both your toes and you're good at doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not
That's
like something.
polyrhythms, children.
Yeah, this isn't going to have like fun hooks and earworms that make you want to party all the time. It's a little deeper than that. But like
a band that I brought on this podcast covered that song not long ago.
yeah, I mean, of songs to cover.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that and Booty in Your Butt, like,
Booty in your butt, yeah.
which is another song that showed up today without my life. Booty in Your Butt showing up. But yeah, like this back to the album. This is an artistic, a lot of artistic discretion thrown around on this album, and it is sort of in between genres as far as my vocabulary is good for, but like it definitely was going for something and a lot of different somethings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's music that felt cool. I have to say I found myself hooked with it a lot. It was fun for me to listen to. It is more complex, but I did have moments where actually I kind of was like feeling it, and like kind of like hooky moments, and there were especially early on the album. But yeah, it is cool and weird and musically diverse in a really great way. It has a really great diverse sound. It defies expectations of what you expect it's gonna go. Zigs when you think it's gonna zag. I couldn't help being completely transfixed by the cool like tones that they were doing with like the guitars. The drums were really cool. The like all the other stuff that they were doing, like layering and some effects and some sound effects, which were really cool. And think at the center of it all, Courtney Swain's vocals, her voice is just undeniable. Like her voice is just captivated me. It was really cool, and she has really great control of her voice, and she does really cool fun things that do right by the emotion and tone of the songs. And yeah, and I just found myself really just moment to moment just like could not help but just feel good like about like just having this like whether it was playing on my car, because it was just like doing fun things and doing cool things just moment to moment, song from song to song, that just like led me on a really cool ride, yeah, overall. So but speaking of moment to moment and song to song, the key tracks, David, what would be some of the key tracks that you would zero in on?
I'm going to take what Brett said about this not having any earworms and disagree, because my
Traditional earworms, Mister. I've got a fantastic palate. Like no, it you know, like you know, I didn't say just because it wasn't hook your earworming. That was not qualitative. That was just.
But I've got one. I've got one. And this is my personal earworm of 2020 so far, and that is "Give Us the Gold." I've had that song and its wonderful chorus on repeat for like the last month and a half. That was the song that inspired me to bring this album onto this podcast. And it finishes in a real chaotic place where Courtney Swain is screaming the hook and then it just stops, and it's really exciting. Cradle of Rocks. This is the song that might be a little bit more palatable. If there were a radio single, this would probably be the one. And there's some weirdness in the instrumental parts that still shows that this might be a bit more of a palatable song, but they're still going places and they're still taking you places. Catch Light. The notes that I wrote for this one are, I just like it. And that was it. And lastly, Garbage Shark, I think, is the song that will lull people in with a false sense of security and then sweep the rug out from under you. And I love those kinds of dynamics.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Rage, not range.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start by saying Lansing is the first track. Again, it lulled me into, it's just a bunch of talking basically, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is totally a concept album. This is a prog metal concept album, and here's setting up the concept, and then track 2, Bone Rage. I was like, yep, it's loud and in your face, and then from there, it quickly became not all that all the time, which was, again, I liked. Birdsong, I think this one really exemplified the kind of stereotypical, in my mind, breathy pop vocals, which I'm not crazy about personally, but Catch Light, I really liked this one. Like, I kind of found myself, yeah, I'm grooving to this. Because I put it on in the background and I'm like, oh yeah, what's this one? That was it. And so yeah.
Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Bone Rage. We've all been there. But yeah, like the
I press
vocals.
2 on my keyboard and that activates Bone Rage, but it's on like a 15-second cooldown.
What's the cooldown? Yeah. Yeah.
Seek a doctor if it lasts for more than 4 hours.
That's right. You know, sometimes you choose something, who knows what color it is, and you've got Bone Rage. But yeah, you know, it's the opening with like noise, loud clipping, right after, you know, the like, oh, everybody's moving furniture around and talking type
Hey
opening
guys, I
track.
just want to thank you all for coming to our show.
Make sure to tip the wait staff. You kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
We got
you
a
know,
CD for
Drums are
sale.
working.
Buy a T-shirt.
you know,
Black and gray.
go check out Mike in the back.
He's got our merch.
Love you, Mike. But yeah, so the Hold Me In at the 2-minute and 28-second mark. There is the groan of a dying zombie man from Doom. That's noteworthy, at least in my ears tell me that.
Good catch.
The Cradle of Rock. You know, like Deej was saying, this is probably the most palatable. Like it would be the radio single. It kind of has a chorus that has like it's kind of put together like a Killer song, in the chorus, but only in the chorus. If you want to know what I'm talking about, listen to the Killer's first album and that with the synth and the drum beat and and the vocals that go places, but not as much as this. And Birdsong. Yes, it's the breathy piano vocal thing, but there's like at some points it sounds like the vocals were a recording on a tape that was played by a Mellotron, and then that Mellotron recording was recorded onto like a Memorex cassette tape that was kind of crinkled, and that was.
I love this. I love it.
I mean, I don't have the vocabulary.
Specific.
Well, it's like, but it's only the use of effects are single track effects only. So like it's always weird. Like when there's like that was what kept me from second guessing myself, because I'm like everything else is covered. Like when I hear an effect, I'm always like, is it everything? Are the drums even getting the effect on it, or is it just like with this? Like I was kind of second guessing myself, because it is one of those weird albums. Like, you know, I did not know, like they could gotten away with doing all kinds of crazy stuff, because they did do crazy stuff. But yeah, this album goes from like straight up like, you know, the quiet start to the very loud to you know, all the way to a piano ballad-ish type, almost breathy indie. So it had that like indie vocal thing going, but it had more than just a talking drone. It was weird. Yeah. This album does this thing. This album does things that make me want to figure out what people call things these days in music. Like, I need more vocabulary.
Yeah, it's like I need to study.
When they make
I
this,
have
what do they
enough
call
stuff I'm not studying already.
Yeah, it's like I know what a boodle deedle do is. I've studied the boodle deedle do for years. I need to figure out what other noises that I make with my mouth.
I
know
want
the
heavy metal saxophone, guys. That's enough, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, there's heavy metal violin on here too.
Yes.
So like, you know, don't forget about that.
Yeah, got to bring the strings. We get into some of these tracks. Yeah, I'll want, you know, the cooldown is up, so I'll once again activate Bone Rage. It's an AOE, so it's useful to have early on. Bone Rage is really captivating, especially from, you know, the vocals captivate right away. And it's really concussive. You know, everything that everybody's talking about, but it's nice and concussive and like impactful in a really great way. And it catches your attention. I think of another track I would like highlight is Egg Replacer. Just because like it goes like that one. If we're talking about dynamic, that one quiet, loud, you know. There's the ultimate dynamics on that one, and that one really does that well. Cradle of Rocks. That one gave me, and that one was the most palatable one. That one gave me almost like 70s rock feels. Like I kept thinking, I don't know if this is accurate, but for some reason Fleetwood Mac came to mind. Just in like something of the structure, especially when it landed at the hook. There was moments that just kind of like, there were certain like little moments and little parts, especially when it lands at this crescendo or whatever we wanted to use the word, that kind of reminded me of like 70s rock and in a lot of ways. I think and of course the Garbage Shark and Golden Hour combo, I think if we wanted to like call it, Garbage Shark is a really cool track, but followed up by Golden Hour does a really great like feel and combo to it together. Let's bring it back around the horn, talk about some conclusive thoughts. Matt, at the end of the day, what is your conclusion on this album as a whole?
Overall, I think I like it. I don't see it making its way into my iTunes library per se, which is always kind of my personal litmus test. But like, there were definitely a lot of songs on this that I could get into, and I think with time I could get into even more of them and appreciate all of them a little more. I don't know if I like it at this point to put that kind of effort into it. But overall, it was a really interesting album, and had a lot of, as Brett was talking about, a lot of interesting effects, like on Cradle of Rocks. There's the guitar at one point sounds like something that I'm trying to troubleshoot with an amplifier I currently own, and
does it just compress so much that it makes that one little piece of tone
compresses and just that it's bad. It's the compression distortion, either a blown speaker or blown power transistor.
Brett, how would you conclude on this album at the end of the day?
I mean, hey, make your art. This is obviously an album that was not made to appeal to the widest audience possible. There's obviously a ton of effort that went into this because, there's a lot going on here, and for as much as the vocals go where they go, you don't hear like there's not laziness on display here. This is not something I would usually listen to. Maybe it'll grow on me as I have more time, but like I'm glad that I say this every time, but I'm glad I know this exists, because I had no idea that people were making music like this specifically in 2019. So like, overall, like I wasn't mad at this album. It's just different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely different. I not only wasn't mad, I was delighted by this album. This is different in a lot of really cool ways. It's creative, it's fun, it is weird, it is musically diverse. It didn't feel like homework to me, even though they were all like music school nerds. It didn't feel like work, though it did feel at least somewhat academic. But I think it is a quality album, and there's a lot of cool things to break apart, but I just enjoyed just having it wash over me, even just like just as an experience. So this was a dope album. I'm glad that I can point to. This is one of those bands I can point to, and somebody says like, nobody makes good music. I'm like, you're dumb. Look at this. Like first of all, you're dumb on your face value, but look, here's proof that you're dumb.
Yeah.
David, finally, what will be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm glad that you guys are glad. That makes me glad too. I will say that this had moments, and I love moments where I can just move back about 10 seconds and listen to a bass line or a drum fill or even just a drum hit where something is really cool going on, then it catches my ear. And this album had that. Maybe not in spades, but it had it. I liked this. I didn't love it as much as I expected, but I did like it. There's a lot of good. But I can understand how this might not be something anyone would want to really sit down and groove with. It can be a bit difficult. It would be like someone that does a podcast, but then they end up doing 5 different podcasts about 5 completely different things. It's really hard to kind of grasp what they're doing in that regard because there's so many ideas and dynamics being thrown because that's just kind of how the brains of these musicians work. You're capable of doing these things. Why not try and do them? And I love that.
Yeah.
And every one of those podcasts talks about wrestling at least a little bit.
Yes.
So
that is
They're
a
all
lot.
3 hours and spend at least 30 minutes per episode somehow talking about wrestling.
Exactly.
yeah, it's the tie that binds all of those disparate podcasts together.
Yeah.
Wrestling.
You have no
The
idea
band.
how hard I avoid talking about it. I have a hard time defining Bent Knee and putting them in a box, but that's kind of what I love about them. Courtney Swain as a vocalist in her higher range and her more powerful singing is absolutely spectacular. I love when she's really, really going for it. And I want to like them more, and I have a feeling that I'm going to love their next album. But this album, I just liked it. I would say that it was good. It was good.
Yeah, those are our thoughts on Bent Knees. You know what you are. You know what they. You know what you have with the, and they have, and with what you know what they mean. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know what he
Burn.
means.
David's the lucid one. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews, where we sum it all up in poetic form. A little 575, a little action like that. A little cultural appropriation, just nothing major, nothing major.
Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah, just a
Yes.
sprinkle, sprinkle. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Haiku numero uno. Let's start with Matt. Matt, what is your haiku?
Didn't hate the thing. Found some lanes in which to groove. We may meet again.
Brett, what is your haiku?
Complicated beats, vocals that go up and down. Skilled, but not for me.
My haiku. This band has the chops and know how to apply them. Had me fixated. And lastly, David, what is your haiku?
Modern rock gumbo. Daring songwriting, well played. Good, just short of great.
Gumbo. Now I'm hungry.
I have some gumbo tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wonder if I could get good gumbo around here. Those are our thoughts on Bent Knees. You know what they mean. You know what I mean? You know what they mean. You know what he means, you know what she means. You know what they mean. You can find this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your dude diligence. Follow along with us at home. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record, and it's going to be provided by Brett. Brett, what have you got for us next week?
Well, I figured that there's a different makeup of the group these days since we had we had to call somebody up from the farm, and I figured that there are experiences that I haven't gone back to and revisited in a long time. So I pulled out my friend Stanley. He's a simple man from the town of Oakland, and we're gonna listen to his third record called "Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em."
Yeah. Please. There you go. One last name Hammer, first name MC.
We're gonna hear some
gasp.
samples.
Yeah.
We're gonna hear some dancey groove beats.
Exactly.
Brett, I want you to know that that gasp was genuine excitement.
Yes.
Hey, yeah, we're all the same age.
Yes.
Like we were there for it,
Yes.
Yes, we were.
Yes. Yes. I was.
and I haven't
definitely
been there
for it.
since.
Yes.
So,
So-
here we go.
Yes.
We being used a little loosely.
Yeah. Well, the
olds,
the olds,
the millennials in the group.
unfortunately,
I'm barely a millennial.
barely, just on the cusp.
Yeah.
Participation trophy at its worst. You're pretty much a millennial. Here you
pretty
go.
much.
I think
Good.
I'm like
Here's
two-
the trophy that all of us got. All of
Yeah.
us.
I got a 2-year buffer.
Yeah.
Margin of that's fine.
Margin of error. Yes. Yes, look forward to that, but that'll be next week. And this is this week. And you can of course find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Matt is at MRiddickW. Brett is at HibbityBearBird HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is Drew is at Extra Suffix. I'm like, it's so like inherent into know. Also,
I still think you're gonna say that Patrick is at the
Pat
swagger
is
every time.
at the swagger.
Kaz is at King Kaz.
Exactly. Roberto Villegas is at
Anytime-
Vincent 404.
Anytime I need to remember Brett's username, I replay you saying Brett is at the Hibbity Bibbard HIBBITYBIBBARD. Like
Yes.
it's your voice that plays when I have to remember his username.
Yes, I'm proud. I'm at PD Rave.
PD as in Williams, Ravens, and Jimmy.
All in one word. The show is at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelli.net for this and other shows. Rebelli TV on YouTube and other places. Check us out everywhere you find podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Unless you're a SoundCloud spammer, then I'm just gonna block and report you, so don't bother.
Ooh, got him.
But yeah, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Rebelli Podcast, baby.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.